Hi fellas, we've heard a bit of a litany of complaints against the Catholic Church's various errors over its history. Could we perhaps hear a bit about the societies where atheism has been the dominant moral force, like the glories of Pol Pot's Cambodia, Stalin, Mao's China, and perhaps the bloodbath of the enlightening French Revolution? Could we hear a bit about them?
I would love nothing more than to tell you a little bit about them. And the lovely thing is that as a human being, looking at the actions of other human beings who attempted to get together and derive a set of rules about how their society should be run, I am well within my rights to say it's probably not the best way to do it. Because there's no objectivity, or there's no moral hand-me-down of a set of rules that can or can't be interpreted in a correct way. Atheism, I suppose, lacks that guiding figurehead, and I think that you do me a disservice in making me have to explain to you that that Stalin and Pol Pot did what they did because they were human beings. I think it's been well said that it's just as relevant to what they did, that they were an atheist, as they could have both eaten Cheerios for breakfast. I think you can say that Stalin's massacres were motivated by what his plans were for religion, but that was motivated out of political expediency. And even if it was because of his atheism, it can't be tied to some kind of guiding principle. So I think it's nothing more than a straw man, and a kind of absurd, childish one at that.
I think Stalin's ideology was motivated by dialectical materialism, and I think that there's no rational way to show that his morality was any worse than a morality founded on justice and love if your basis for morality is merely subjective desires.
Sure, but that's, again, I think it's a very difficult conversation to have if you keep presupposing that the only rational basis for a moral system is objective morality. If what you're asking me to do is show that he is objectively wrong, morally, then I think you're missing the point, because that's not exactly what I'm trying to tell you.
What are you trying to tell me?
What does Jason think?
What I'm trying to tell you is that, or rather, what is to demonstrate objectively, in a logical sense, that is, that moral statements, or moral statements can be expressed logically and can be correct or incorrect. And I think that this is a distraction, or founded upon very wishful thinking and very self-referential thinking. So what I'm saying to you in light of that, and obviously that's a conversation that will take hours to talk about, what I'm proposing in light of that, and again, we can discuss the merits, what we are proposing in light of that is that humans getting together, deciding what they value, and then extrapolating from there is a better system. In fact, it's what we do. So that I can say, if you claim, I can say to another person who might say, might hold different moral theories to me, we apparently value the same thing, equality, but your actions do not extrapolate from equality, they extrapolate from a desire for inequality or repression or discrimination. Therefore, if we are both valuing equality, then what you're doing is incorrect and what I'm doing is correct.
I'd just like to say I completely reject your own rejection of logic and rationality. Like, I always thought that atheists were the one who prided themselves on being logical and rational, but I guess I'm mistaken.
Okay. Excellent. In the interest of balance, we've heard a few questions for the Atheist Society. If any of the questioners have any questions for the Catholic Society, would one of you or two of you mind coming first, please?
Yeah, right. For the second speaker of the Catholic Society, sorry I don't know your name.
Jason.
Jason. Hi, Jason. You said earlier in your speech today that that we are simply a collection of chemicals that randomly evolved for no reason. You said that in the sense that you believe that we believe this, which is true. However, without your religion, would you then go on a mass killing spree because effectively we're all just a bunch of chemicals and it makes no difference?
Whoa. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Simple fact. Well, okay, as I mentioned, I'm a convert to Catholicism. When I was an atheist, no, I never went on a mass killing spree. That, however, is not the question. The question is, did I have any rational reason for not doing so other than it never particularly appealed to me? No. Well, actually, to be perfectly honest, if I stop believing in God,
if you weren't a Christian or Catholic, would you have a problem?
If I were an atheist, I cannot see any rational grounds that I would have for concluding that or any other behaviour.
May I suggest you stay a Catholic?
Anything of my initial speech, you've known that Catholic morality is based on the natural purposes of human beings, which is obviously available to all human people. I didn't appeal at all to a God. I didn't appeal to divine commands, which is my whole point. I clarified that so that you might be able to understand that.
I can assure you I will be saying Catholic.
I believe.
Sorry. This is for the Catholic side. They talk about objective morality, but isn't it hypocritical to say we have their side has objective morality when they pick and choose which part of the Bible they want to practice, when there's so much evil in the book, but also when each pope comes, the next pope can change what the system was, what the belief was for the next believers.
Okay.
So,
well, I can certainly agree it would be hypocritical to pick and choose what parts of this book, of the Bible we accepted, which is one of the reasons the Catholic Church doesn't. I can assure you,
so
if you
should
hang on.
stone adulterers?
No.
Jesus
Hang on. The Bible
made sure not to stone adulterers.
Guys,
Question, please.
the Bible does not say that all adulterers should be stoned. The Bible says that God gave a specific command to the theocratic kingdom of Israel, which existed for a specific time, that adulterers should be stoned. If we were still in the period prior to the coming of Christ, where the laws which God gave for that specific period were still in force, then yes, I would agree that adulterers should be stoned. But
That's a relativist standpoint.
no, it's not a relativist standpoint.
It is. For different time, different role. So it's
It's
just
objective in different contexts.
Natural law is objective for all times and for all contexts. In addition to natural law, you have what is called positive law, which are specific commands given for specific times and for in specific contexts. For instance, it is a principle of natural moral law that children, generally speaking, should obey their parents. It is a natural law that children, generally speaking, should obey their parents. If I'm 7 and my father tells me not to do something, I shouldn't do it. If a few years later my father says to me, now that you're older, you can do this, I am still obeying the objective natural moral law to obey my parents, but the specific matter of positive law is now changed.
Can I have a brief comment? I think the problem, and I hear that argument a lot, that it's a specific law for a specific time, and that's okay, I suppose. The problem is that it's the same God. And so your contention is, and please correct me on this if I'm not representing it, your contention is that at some point, in some culture, and in some context, stoning rape victims was okay. And the problem is that then that gets reverted back to, well, other societies did it also, so how could they have known better? But in that case, what, in the words of Stephen Fry, what are you for? In that, if everything comes down to, if you either have to assert that it's in some context, stoning rape victims is okay, for example, or you know, kind of genocide and mass murder are okay in certain contexts, then I think that very much undermines what you're attempting to tell.
If it's possible for me to just I think, I do think that justice is objective. I think that giving justice is part of objective morality. However, I think that, I mean, and I'm no expert on political theory or anything, but I do think there might be some times when the death penalty might be just. I don't think that every crime calls for death, but I don't think that death is impermissible either. And so, call me a relativistic one, but I'm just an objectivist about justice.
Death for what is the
Okay.
For a heinous crime.
Okay, moving on to this patient gentleman now have to say.
That's very kind, thank you. I'm not sure who I want to answer this question, more Travis or Dramatic Ponytail. I'm sorry.
It's as near as I got to Julian Porteous's name.
I've heard a lot of assertions given, and Mr. Russell, who I've just discovered his face isn't actually Edgar Allan Poe's, was challenged to cite references. And I believe the Catholic side challenged you to cite a few references. What I really want to bring up is, there seems to have been an equivocation between what is valued and what is valuable. And valuable was defined as what we as a society value. The two questions I have, it's become two now, sorry. Who are we exactly? By what do you define the society? Is it the people who you happen to agree with to the exclusion of people like me who don't agree with me? Or is it everyone, including all the disagreements on moral issues and philosophies? And why should I believe you when you tell me that what is valuable is defined as what this society, which is yet to be defined, happens to value at the time? Is that clear enough?
I think the problem is that a Catholic concept of value applies almost exclusively, in fact, entirely exclusively to the Catholic Church. I think secularism and humanism offer far more universally appealing doctrines, and in terms of a basis from which the least harm can be done to the fewest people, if we ignore those unsightly wounds in the Soviet Union, it's a much better path to go down. I think if you want to look at value, you have to look at it independent, or as independently as you possibly can from, well, Catholicism.
So what you're saying is that valuable is defined by utilitarianism?
Given that you would like to define it as objectivism, then yes, I think that it's defined by utilitarianism.
I admit that I'm wearing a cross, and so I'm quite obviously a Catholic. I haven't actually conceded a position, I just want to understand yours.
If I can add to that, I think when I conflated, not necessarily conflated, but when I connected valued and valuable as concepts, I think obviously to specifically, I suppose, delineate the two concepts would have taken much more time than I had the liberty of taking. That being said, and I really would love to be making eye contact with you while I say that. That being said, I think for the purpose of expediency, what I was attempting to say was that we as a society, and I suppose society to define it, is the discourse, the public discourse that embodies kind of our legal system, public moral kind of debate, moral theory, kind of academics. It's society as a whole in all of its arms and instruments. I lost myself. So that is what I think society is. But if we decide that, or at least nominally, all of the arms of society coming from different moral opinions value this. What I mean is, a Catholic who says, I don't believe in gay marriage, would still admit to finding equality a very good concept to be applying in our moral imperatives. So that when I say, well, we both value equality, but your moral imperatives don't appear to me to be properly extrapolated from this notion of equality, when mine do, that is as wrong as I think you can be. In that I can't objectively say, deity XYZ has commanded me that X is true, therefore you're wrong. What I can say is, well, if we both are speaking the same language, your words are put together poorly.
Could I invite David to answer, because you just mentioned divine command, and I think he wants to jump up and say,
yeah, just a comment. Even the issue of gay marriage, I fully agree with what you say when you say that equality is something we both value. And I think I, as a Catholic, have a right to say it's something we objectively value. You can't even say that. However, the question about gay marriage, I think, is not a moral issue in terms of our dispute. Rather, it's an issue it's a dispute about non-moral facts. The non-moral fact is, what is the definition of marriage? We have different definitions of marriage, and I'd like to say that our definition is a natural one, because it's in accord with what I define objective morality is, in accord with natural purposes. You, however, have nothing to say.
Okay, I mean, I was using the idea of gay marriage it could have been easily anything else, such as abortion, whether abortion is morally right or wrong.
Same thing. Okay, the dispute over abortion is also a non-moral fact. The non-moral fact in question is whether the fetus is a person or not. The question isn't whether human life is valuable. We all value human life, I hope you do. I objectively do. The thing is...
We are fast running out of time, and there are 2 more people who would like to ask questions, so I'm afraid we'll have to cut it a bit short.
Thank you, everyone.
Bravo. There's been a bit of toing and froing in this debate about whether the atheist side is justified in quoting clergymen or recounting scandals involving clergymen in order to sort of illustrate what the teachings of the Catholic Church might be. So, just for my benefit, I have a small question for the Catholic side, because it's an aspect of Catholic teaching that I'm not hugely familiar with. Is it the case that under the teachings of the Catholic Church, ordained clergy members are the appointed arbiters of God's teachings?
Yes and no would be the short answer. Yes, under certain very specific circumstances. Well, no, a priest by himself is not an arbiter of what God's teaching is.
What about the
hang on. Yes, but once again, one has to be very careful. When the Pope makes clear that he is exercising his teaching office, he is an arbiter of God's will. However, it needs to be very clearly classified that we're talking about when he makes clear that he is exercising his teaching office. Popes through the centuries have done horrific things and at various points made attempts to justify them. And for me, this is in fact one of the great strengths of Catholicism, that you have popes who have publicly done, you have the Borgia popes who, kept mistresses, did all sorts of scandalous things, and made various private arguments attempting to justify what they were doing, who nonetheless, when exercising their public teaching office, made very clear that they were teaching the traditional morality of the Church, even though that was a rebuke to what they were doing.
Okay, good, thank you. Just one more thing to be absolutely clear. When popes in the last, say, 2 or 3 decades have claimed that homosexuality is wrong, and that abortion is wrong, and that the use of condoms is wrong, have they been exercising their teaching office according to that?
Well, they've never said that homosexuality is wrong. They said that homosexual acts are wrong. I'm sorry, for me personally, that's a fairly big distinction. I couldn't be up here as a representative of all of them.
Alright, so what they've said is that homosexual
what the Church has said on all 3 of those teachings, of those topics, are contained in what are clearly official teaching documents. They have been exercising their magisterial authority. Yes.
Alright, thank you very much.
if I can quickly add, the distinction between homosexual acts and homosexuals is